Hello everyone, Chris White here, CTO of Prefect. 6 months ago, we came together to talk about the release of Prefect 3.0, and today, I'm excited to give you an update on our open source journey. Not just where we're going, but to celebrate where we've been in the incredible community that's gotten us here. This is a story about our continued commitment to open source and the community that drives it. When we first started Prefect, we observed something fundamental about data workflows. The challenge isn't usually in writing the core business logic, which is either straightforward to write in Python or is at least the fun part of the job. The real complexity lies in handling all the ways that logic can fail in production. Delayed upstream data, API timeouts, resource constraints, schema changes. Now this insight shaped our approach to workflow orchestration. Instead of asking developers to completely rewrite their code for our platform, we designed Prefect to wrap around existing Python code, adding resilience and portability while preserving that original logic. That philosophy has guided us through multiple versions of our platform. And today, I want to share how this approach has evolved to address the changing needs of modern data teams. Our story really begins all the way back with Prefect 1.0, where we introduced a novel paradigm for 2018, the idea that workflow orchestration should be Pythonic. Inspired by distributed tools like Dask and building on Jeremiah's experience as a PMC member for Airflow, we created a system based on simple Python decorators for tasks and flows. But what made it truly special was our introduction of task mapping, a feature that would later become foundational to our dynamic execution capabilities and eventually made its way into every other workflow orchestration SDK. With our 2.0 release a few years later, we pushed those boundaries further. We recognize that real-world workflows don't always fit into neat, pre-planned DAG structures. Sometimes you need to update a job definition based on runtime information or easily skip a branch of your workflow. So we remove the restriction that workflows be written explicitly as DAGs, fully embracing native Python control flow, if-else conditionals, while loops, everything that makes Python, well, Python. Little did we know at the time, but this decision would prove crucial for supporting the AI-driven agentic workflows that are becoming increasingly important today. And with our Prefect 3.0 release a few months ago, we kept this pattern going by releasing our events and automations backend, allowing users to natively represent event-driven workflows and gain additional observability into their execution. In addition to this, 3.0 included a leap forward in performance, improving the runtime overhead of Prefect by almost 90% in some cases. And perhaps more important than all of this, the 3.0 release also represented something very special to us, a recommitment to our open source roots. You know, it's one thing for me to stand here and tell you all about our progress, but the numbers tell an even more compelling story. For example, in the last 2 years, the Prefect repository has been starred over 8,000 times, and we have earned over half of those in the last 6 months alone. In fact, just this past November, we became the #1 trending repository on all of GitHub, which takes into account more than just star count, and not just in our category, but across all public repositories. Now, we all know that stars are just vanity metrics, so let me share something a little bit more substantial. Within just 1 month of our 3.0 launch, approximately 70% of all open source Prefect servers had already upgraded, and that number has continued to climb. But here's what really excites me. In just 3 months since the 3.0 release, the total number of active open source servers has approximately tripled. Our PyPI download numbers tell a similarly amazing growth story. Before 3.0, we were seeing about 300,000 downloads per week. Today, we are consistently exceeding 1.25 million downloads weekly. That's more than a 4x increase that is sustained over months. But you know what matters more than numbers? Impact. And one important way that many teams benefit from Prefect workflow orchestration capabilities is through compute resource efficiency. In many ways, our job is to marry business logic to compute resources, ensuring your code gets exactly the compute it needs when it needs it, whether that's scaling down to save costs or scaling up to maximize utilization of fixed resources. Our recent community infrastructure survey revealed just how important this approach has been. Nearly half of our users reported improved resource utilization or direct infrastructure cost savings after implementing Prefect. Even more striking, 82% of our users are running within specialized compute environments, things like serverless infrastructure, distributed computing frameworks, high memory machines, or GPUs. Of this group, some users reported savings of 60% or more. Let me share a quote that illustrates this perfectly. One team reported, Prefect enabled the teams to collectively build an additional 78 pipelines within a single quarter, each tailored to unique compute resource requirements, an efficiency that would have been unattainable with their previous solution, resulting in a 73% reduction in invoice costs alone. One of the superpowers of Prefect lies in its flexibility across different infrastructure environments. Another user told us, what we love about Prefect is how seamlessly it integrates with Azure Container Instances to enable horizontal scaling of our platform ingestion pipelines. Prefect lets us handle our significant usage spikes when we may spin up 500 to 1,000 container instances for a short time, all orchestrated by a single modestly sized worker. This is more than just workflow orchestration. It's about giving teams the power to be strategic with their compute resources. Whether you're a CTO looking to optimize infrastructure costs across your entire stack, a platform team seeking to provide better developer experience while maintaining or even improving governance, or a data science team needing to seamlessly switch between CPU and GPU resources on the fly, Prefect makes it possible to ensure your code gets exactly the compute it needs precisely when it needs it. I now want to walk you through some of the major improvements we've delivered since 3.0's launch and what we're planning to focus on next. So for starters, we've made many improvements to our result serialization protocols. This might sound technical, but for certain workflows, it can result in much more efficient use of result storage and improved caching. So specifically, you can now store task results using native file formats and/or fully custom serialization methods. Let me explain. By default, the files that Prefect produces containing serialized task results also include metadata used for Prefect's caching mechanisms. This can make it difficult to use those results directly in downstream systems. But now, if you configure a cache policy with a key storage argument, you can store cache records separately from task results. This means when cache key storage is configured, your persisted task results will only include the return value of your task serialized in exactly the way that you specified. And cache records then can separately be deleted or modified without affecting your task results. This makes it dramatically easier to reason about task results, implement custom protocols, and share task results across systems. On the execution side, we very recently worked on one of the most frustrating problems in distributed systems, zombie processes. I'm sure you know the situation. A workflow appears to be running, but it's actually dead. Maybe its pod was unexpectedly evicted, leaving you wondering what happened and whether you should restart it. We've introduced an opt-in heartbeat emission system based on our events backend that, when coupled with our automation framework, can effectively identify and mark these zombie runs as crashed instead of leaving them incorrectly in running states. To enable this, you'll want to update the Prefect runner heartbeat frequency setting to some number greater than 30, and then create an appropriate automation to monitor these heartbeat events. You can check out our docs for more information and an example. Now, speaking of settings, one of the most important improvements we've made is to our settings management framework, which gives teams much more control and flexibility over how their workflows behave across different environments. So we now support multiple configuration sources for specifying Prefect settings, from environment variables for quick overrides to .env files for local development, even to prefect.toml and pyproject.toml files for project-wide settings that can be and should be version controlled with your code. These sources follow a clear inheritance precedence, making it predictable and intuitive to manage settings whether you're testing locally or running in production. For deployments, this means your infrastructure configuration, logging levels, and other critical settings can be declared right alongside your workflow code, ensuring consistency across environments while maintaining the flexibility to override settings as needed. We've also been tackling some tech debt across the code base, but particularly in our asynchronous and synchronous execution layer. This might not sound exciting to you, but it's crucial for improving code testability, reducing bugs, and supporting the diverse range of use cases that our community brings to us. Now, the last thing that I want to mention is a feature that came directly from your feedback. As you might be aware, one of our most requested features has been some form of basic authentication for self-hosted Prefect APIs. Now, I know we had cold feet at first, but I'm proud to say that we have released support for a basic authentication protocol that can be configured through 2 Prefect settings specifying the user password authentication string. 1 setting for the server and 1 setting for any client that wants to communicate with that server. Within 24 hours of shipping this feature, we were already receiving feedback from the community. This is exactly the kind of collaborative development that we hoped for when we deepened our commitment to open source with 3.0. But we've still got more work to do. We're working on several exciting new initiatives that we hope will continue to improve Prefect's core functionality and feature set, and I'd like to share 3 of those initiatives with you right now. So first, we're completely re-platforming our UI, moving from Vue to React. Now this isn't just about using a different framework. We hope that this change makes it easier for our community members to contribute, fix bugs, and provide in-depth feedback on the UI, ultimately lowering the barrier to entry for contributors and creating more opportunities for collaborative development with you all. Second, we're working on improving type completeness across Prefect's public API. Now, you might ask, why do I care, especially in a dynamically typed language like Python? Well, think about your daily development experience. Well-typed code bases offer improved autocomplete experiences within your IDEs and make it easier for AI assistants to reach the correct conclusions when offering code suggestions. Now, we're not just talking about internal typing here. We also want to give users typing tools that help them author more resilient workflows. So for example, imagine having autocomplete for deployment parameter values, work pool job overrides, and the ability to run type safety checks on your own code in CI. These are all things we plan to ship in the coming months. The third, and perhaps most ambitious effort that I want to share is our work on dynamic infrastructure. We're actively developing a system that will allow per-task infrastructure configuration that will allow users to dynamically submit tasks to any piece of infrastructure and bind tasks to certain infrastructure requirements. So users will be able to submit individual tasks defined in Python in their own Kubernetes jobs, for an example. This will come hand in hand with an integration with UV, the lightning-fast Python package manager, and a lower memory footprint for Prefect imports. This should all make it even easier to configure your Prefect workflows to run on exactly the infrastructure they need when they need it, optimizing for both resource efficiency and cost effectiveness. And all of these advances that I mentioned here will serve as the foundation for greatly improved integrations, especially with popular compute environments like Databricks and Kubernetes. When I opened this talk, I spoke about how Prefect began with the recognition that production data challenges aren't really about writing business logic. They're about handling the complex ways that code can fail in the real world. In today's world of specialized compute, this means ensuring your code runs on the right infrastructure at the right time with the right resources. The incredible growth that we've seen in our open source community, from tripled server deployments to quadrupled weekly downloads, tells me that we're addressing a very real need. And as we continue to invest in open source and build new capabilities like dynamic infrastructure and improved integrations, we remain focused on that core mission, making it easier for you to run production workflows reliably and efficiently without compromising on the developer experience that you love. Thank you all for being a part of this journey, and I'm so excited to see what you all build next. Happy engineering!